Hey everyone. I had a really good meeting with our classmate Doug, and I just wanted to go ahead and share some of what we talked about. He's working on a piece of evidence. We were looking at one of his body paragraphs, and he has a really good sense of the 4 steps, those important 4 steps that help us integrate and develop our evidence. Let's look at those now. They're color-coded so that we're going to see the paragraph represent these different things that are highlighted. Step 1, introduce and or give a context for the evidence. Step 2, offer the specific concrete evidence. Step 3, analyze the specific details from that evidence. And step 4, explain how the analysis and ideas relate to the topic sentence. So these are, I think, 4 steps that are some of the most important ideas that I teach to you in this class. This is really the crux of how you show your critical thinking. How do you articulate it in a clear structure, a logical structure that is easy for someone who's not inside your head to understand what you're talking about. All right, so now that we kind of refreshed on those 4 steps, and you've seen a mention of those steps when you looked at the overview of essay structure, and if you haven't already seen the video, there's one that goes more specifically into these 4 steps. That's coming up this week. So let's go ahead and look at what it is that Doug started with. Okay, and we're just looking at the 4 steps of a specific piece of evidence. This is not a whole paragraph. It's just one piece of evidence that would be in a paragraph. All right, so I'll go ahead and read it out for you so we can get a sense of what it's saying. Karen and Gus are sitting in the living room, and Gus opens up to Karen. He confesses, "He's going to love that thing his whole life, and it's all my fault. I left home as fast as I could. I never thought about him. He moves into the goddamn garage like the family dog, and I let him. No wonder he goes and orders a fiancé in a box." Gus feels accountable for Lars's trauma and for almost forcing Lars to create Bianca to fill in the void of having a true relationship with others. Gus runs away from his problems and as a teenager abandoned his brother. This makes Gus feel liable for Lars's mental and emotional state. Gus is recognizing he is selfish and egocentric. He never considered Lars and even sees him as an object instead of a person with emotions. According to Gus, Lars's current state falls on his shoulders. These are great ideas and a really solid, interesting quotation to pull out of the film to analyze. And I think that Doug really gets to those points of what the quotation means. But there's some things that we can do that will make it a lot easier for the reader to see how you got from the evidence to the ideas. Okay, and so the next piece that we're going to look at is one that's highlighted. So you'll see words that are not actually highlighted, but in violet letters. And this is what I added to the paragraph to show how to make the connections from the evidence to your ideas. So remember, step 3, the analysis, is really trying to create a bridge to show the reader how you get from those details in the evidence to the ideas and what you understand. So, one of the things you might notice with what I just read is that there isn't any orange section highlighted in that paragraph. And the thing is, when we're trying to discern whether or not we're doing the steps, steps 3 and 4 are the most difficult steps. Sometimes it's difficult to kind of discern between the two. And so when we look at this next example, you'll notice that there is now a section of it that's highlighted in orange. Because that last part of what Doug says is actually more of a connection to the topic sentence that he has than it is just analysis, straight analysis. All right, so I'll go ahead and read the sample that's been strengthened, and hopefully you can kind of see the difference in how it looks. Karen and Gus are sitting in the living room, and Gus opens up to Karen. He confesses, "He's going to love that thing his whole life, and it's all my fault. I left home as fast as I could. I never thought about him. He moves into the goddamn garage like the family dog, and I let him. No wonder he goes and orders a fiancé in a box. When Gus exclaims, "It's all my fault," Gus reveals that he feels accountable for Lars's trauma and for almost forcing Lars to create Bianca to fill in the void of not having a true relationship with others. Gus runs away from his problems and as a teenager abandoned his brother, which he explains saying, "I left as fast as I could." This makes Gus feel liable for Lars's mental and emotional state. Gus is recognizing he is selfish and egocentric. He never considered Lars and even sees him as an object instead of a person with emotions. According to Gus, Lars's current state falls on his shoulders. Okay, so hopefully you can see how this is kind of integrating the language of the quotation into the analysis so the reader can follow the thought process. Okay. One of the things we did talk about that needs to be added to the paragraph, and Doug's going to work on that, is that sentence about Lars moving out into the garage like the family dog. Right? So ideally that's also something, because that's one of the details in the quotation, that's something that's going to be discussed. Remember, you're responsible for analyzing and explaining all of the details of the quotation that you offer. So if you're putting it in the paper, you're saying it's important to talk about, and you want to analyze it. Okay, so that's one of the things that Doug will be adding to it. And so really quick, I thought I'll just give you a juxtaposition of the two paragraphs so you can see, how they look in relationship to each other. All right, so I hope that helps out a little bit and gives you a sense of how you can start developing that evidence that you want to plug into your paragraphs.